Every morning at exactly 7:10, she sat at table 3. The same corner seat by the window, where the early sunlight slipped through the blinds and painted golden lines across the checkered floor. The world outside was just waking up, engines starting, birds singing, people rushing, but inside this small-town diner, time always seemed to move a little slower. And behind the counter, with a white apron and a gentle smile, stood Mr. Henry. Henry was 68. His back a little bent, his steps a little slow, but his spirit, steady as ever. For 40 years, he'd been serving coffee and kindness in this very place. He didn't talk much, but he remembered everything: how the regulars liked their eggs, who preferred honey over sugar, who was nursing a broken heart that day. And that's why, when the young woman first walked in a few months ago, Henry noticed her immediately. She wasn't like the others. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired a good night's sleep could fix, but the kind that sits behind your eyes, quiet, heavy, and old before its time. Her name was Emma. Mid-20s. Always wore the same gray sweater and carried a faded brown bag. Every morning she ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. "Just coffee, and toast, please." Henry would nod. She'd sit at table 3, stirring her coffee long after it had gone cold, staring at her phone like she was waiting for a message that never came. He didn't know her story. He never asked. But something in her eyes, that mix of determination and exhaustion, reminded him of someone he once knew. Someone he'd lost long ago. The other waiters teased him sometimes. "Henry, you got a crush on the new girl or what?" He'd just smile and shake his head. "It's not like that," he'd say quietly. "She just looks like she could use a little kindness." So he started small. The first time, he slipped an extra packet of jam onto her plate. The next day, he refilled her coffee before she asked, didn't charge her for it either. When she tried to pay, he just said, "Don't worry about it. Coffee tastes better when it's shared." For the first time, she smiled, a real smile, the kind that makes the wrinkles around the eyes matter. From that day, something unspoken began between them. A quiet routine. A rhythm. Every morning she came in. Every morning he served her. They didn't talk much, just small exchanges. "Rough day ahead?" "Same as always." But their silences were comfortable, almost familiar. Henry began to notice little details. How she always checked her phone right at 7:45, frowned, then put it face down. How she sometimes left with eyes red, pretending she just yawned. How she'd scribble things in a notebook filled with dreams, goals, and reminders like, "Don't give up today." He never pried. He'd simply top off her cup, nod gently, and walk away. But in his heart, he was rooting for her, whoever she was, whatever she was fighting. One morning, she came in late, hair slightly wet from rain, hands trembling from the cold. Henry noticed she was trying to count her coins before ordering. He quietly walked to the counter, punched in the order himself, and brought her a full breakfast: eggs, toast, orange juice. She looked up, surprised. "I didn't order this." He smiled softly. "Consider it a house special. No charge." Her voice cracked. "But why?" Henry looked at her for a moment and said, "Because someone once did the same for me. And I never forgot it." She didn't say anything, just nodded and whispered, "Thank you." From that day on, table 3 wasn't just another seat in the diner. It became a tiny corner of warmth, a space where two strangers found comfort in routine. People started noticing. Truckers, locals, even the cook. Everyone saw how the old waiter always saved that seat, cleaned it twice, set it just right, and how the young woman always left a napkin folded in half with a tiny doodle or a handwritten thank you. Each morning, she stayed a little longer. And each time she left, Henry would glance out the window to make sure she crossed the street safely. It wasn't love. It wasn't obligation. It was something deeper, something rare. Two souls, generations apart, quietly helping each other stay afloat in a world that sometimes forgets to care. And yet, behind every smile, there was still a shadow. Henry noticed that sometimes she didn't eat at all, just sipped her coffee and stared at a text message draft, never hitting send. One morning, she dropped her phone, and for a split second, Henry saw her screen. A photo of her parents. Under it, a reminder notification. Mom and Dad's anniversary, don't forget flowers. He turned away quickly, pretending not to notice, but something inside him ached. He'd lost his wife years ago. His daughter had moved across the country and stopped returning calls. Maybe that's why he cared so much. Maybe Emma reminded him of the family he missed every single day. As the days rolled on, the diner became their shared world. A place where the outside noise couldn't reach. But life has a way of changing when you least expect it. Because one morning, as Henry polished the counter and glanced toward the door, Table 3 was empty. He looked at the clock, 7:10. Then 7:30. Then 8. The coffee grew cold. The toast untouched. She never came. And as the sunlight faded and the lunch crowd took over, Henry quietly poured her untouched coffee down the sink. He didn't know it then. But that empty chair was about to change everything. He didn't know that this small act of kindness would soon change his life, forever. Morning light crept back through the blinds of the diner. And Table 3 once again waited. Henry stood behind the counter, his old hands steady, his white apron neatly tied. He didn't know if she'd return, but something in him hoped, quietly, stubbornly. Then, the doorbell chimed. And there she was. Soaked from the rain, hair clinging to her cheeks, but smiling, that small, apologetic smile that said, "I'm sorry I worried you." Henry exhaled, hiding his relief behind a chuckle. "You're late," he teased. She shrugged. "Buses don't like storms, I guess." From that morning onward, their little routine grew roots, gentle, unspoken, but real. Every day, Henry brewed her coffee just the way she liked, 2 sugars, no cream. Every day, she sat at Table 3, sometimes reading, sometimes scribbling notes in her little brown notebook. And every day, they shared a few words, just enough to make the silence feel warm instead of empty. One morning, as she stirred her cup, Henry asked quietly, "So, what's that notebook full of? You always look deep in thought." She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Dreams," she said. "Plans. Stuff I hope will work out one day." Henry nodded. "Dreams are good. They keep you alive." She chuckled softly. "Sometimes they just keep me tired." He learned small pieces of her story, like puzzle fragments scattered across mornings. Her parents had passed away in an accident 3 years ago. She was alone now, no siblings, no nearby relatives. She'd moved to town chasing a job that didn't pay enough, but quitting wasn't an option. She worked 2 shifts, mornings at a local store, nights at a call center. Her rent was late. Her bills were piling up. And yet, she smiled every day she walked into the diner. It wasn't fake, it was hope refusing to die. Henry never pitied her. He respected her. He saw in her the same grit that once kept him going when life had taken everything from him. So one morning, instead of just coffee and toast, Henry left something extra on the table, a small folded napkin. Inside, he'd written, "You're doing great. Don't give up today." She found it when he wasn't looking. And when he turned back later, she was gone, but the napkin was replaced with another. Her handwriting neat and gentle. "Thank you for noticing." That small exchange became their language. Every few mornings he'd leave a short note. "Keep going. Storms don't last forever. Your smile could light this whole diner." And she'd always reply, "Thank you for being kind. You make mornings bearable. You remind me good people still exist." To everyone else, it looked like a sweet, harmless friendship, an old waiter being nice to a struggling young woman. But to Henry it meant more. Those notes became the highlight of his day, the one thing that made his tired old heart feel young again. The town folks noticed too. Regulars whispered with smiles, "There's Henry and his morning girl." Even the cook joked, "You've got a daughter you never told us about, old man?" Henry just smiled. If I did, I hope she'd be like her. In truth, she reminded him painfully of his real daughter, Lily. It had been 12 years since they last spoke. A silly argument that grew into silence, then distance, then nothing. He tried to call. She never picked up. And eventually, he stopped trying, convinced that maybe she was better off without him. But seeing Emma every morning, her quiet strength, her loneliness wrapped in courage, made that buried ache resurface. She filled the space his daughter once did, not by replacing her, but by reminding him what love without condition feels like. Days turned into weeks. The routine became almost sacred. He'd open the diner early, humming softly as he wiped the counter, knowing she'd walk in soon. Sometimes she'd bring her laptop, typing between sips of coffee. Other times she'd just stare outside, lost in thought, while Henry refilled her cup without asking. And every so often, when the diner was empty, she'd ask about him. "Do you ever get tired of being here every day?" Henry smiled. "Never. This place, it's home. The people come and go, but kindness, that stays." She nodded. "That's rare these days." But even as their bond grew, Henry noticed her energy fading. Some mornings, her hands trembled as she held her cup. Her eyes carried shadows, the kind born from sleepless nights and unpaid bills. One morning, she looked especially pale. He leaned over quietly. "You feeling all right, kiddo?" She forced a smile. "Just a long week." He didn't believe her, but he didn't push either. Instead, he slipped another note onto her napkin. "Take care of yourself. The world can wait." That day, her thank you note read simply, "If I disappear for a while, don't worry." The next few mornings came and went. Table 3 stayed empty. The seat where she'd sit, the faint ring from her coffee cup still marked the surface. Henry kept cleaning it, setting it, waiting. By the third day, he stopped pretending not to care. He kept glancing at the door each time the bell rang, hoping it was her. But it never was. Outside, clouds gathered, heavy and dark, pressing against the diner windows. A storm was brewing, thunder rumbling in the distance. The cook noticed him staring at the rain. "She'll be back, Henry. Maybe she's just busy." Henry nodded, but his hands trembled slightly as he poured another cup of coffee, for no one. He placed it gently at table 3. Steam rose, curling upward into the dim light. And he whispered to himself, "She'll come back. She has to." The storm outside grew louder. Lightning flashed across the windows, illuminating the empty chair. And for the first time in months, Henry felt the diner grow cold. Voiceover, closing line. That night, the rain didn't stop. And neither did Henry's worry. Tomorrow would come. But he didn't know if she would. Days passed. And table 3 stayed empty. The first morning, Henry tried to convince himself she was just running late. The second morning, he poured an extra cup of coffee, just in case. By the third, even the cook stopped asking, "She coming today?" The diner felt different now, quieter, colder. The laughter of regulars echoed hollowly against the walls. And every time the bell above the door rang, Henry's heart jumped, only to sink again when it wasn't her. He'd stand by the window during slow hours, towel in hand, watching the street where she used to walk up from the bus stop. He'd imagine her face appearing through the glass, smiling, tired, grateful, just like before. But the door never opened. Her absence wasn't just noticed. It hurt. For a man who'd spent decades serving people who came and went, Henry never thought a single missing customer could feel like a hole in his chest. He still set table 3 every morning, plate, cup, spoon, perfectly aligned. He'd polish the surface twice, wipe down the chair, make sure everything looked just right. It was almost like keeping a promise. Then, one evening, as Henry was closing up, he noticed something near the trash bin behind the counter. A small folded napkin, damp at the corner, but still legible. He picked it up carefully. It was one of hers. Her handwriting, small, neat, familiar. He opened it slowly. Inside were 4 simple words. "Thank you for believing in me." He stood there for a long time, staring at the note. His eyes blurred, and the words began to dance. It felt like she had left it behind for a reason, like a quiet goodbye he never got to hear. He slipped the napkin into his apron pocket and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, the old man felt tears burning behind his eyelids. Henry had known loss before. 12 years ago, his daughter, Lily, had walked out of his life. It started with small arguments, about her college, her friends, her choices. He was stubborn, she was proud. Neither wanted to back down. One night she packed her bags. He thought she'd come back. She never did. He'd called for months, no answer. Letters went unread. And one day, he stopped trying. His wife had already passed years before that, leaving him alone in an empty house filled with echoes of laughter and old photos. That's when he started spending more time at the diner. At first, it was just work. Then, it became something more, a refuge. A place where people smiled, where no one stayed angry for long, where kindness still mattered. When Emma started showing up, something inside him stirred. She wasn't Lily, but she carried the same fire, the same defiant hope that used to shine in his daughter's eyes. And so, when he saw her struggle, he couldn't help himself. It was instinct. Fatherly. Protective. Now she was gone too. Henry began to move through his days like a ghost in his own diner. He took orders, poured coffee, smiled when he had to. But his eyes always drifted toward the empty chair in the corner. Regulars noticed the change. "Henry, you okay?" someone asked one morning. He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah. Just tired." But he wasn't tired. He was lonely, again. That kind of loneliness that sneaks in even when you're surrounded by people. Each night, he locked up the diner, turned off the neon sign, and sat by the window, staring at the rain reflecting off the street. Sometimes he imagined she'd walk past, coat pulled tight, face half hidden by an umbrella, and wave through the glass. But all that ever passed by were strangers. Then one night, after closing, Henry took out his wallet and unfolded the napkin again. He read the words over and over. "Thank you for believing in me." He smiled faintly. "Wherever you are, kiddo," he whispered. "I hope you're okay." He placed the note carefully into a small glass sugar jar on table 3, like a time capsule. A promise that he'd never forget. Weeks passed. Customers came and went. The seasons began to change, leaves turning orange outside the diner window. But Henry's spark had dimmed. Even the cook noticed. "You used to hum when you worked," he said one morning. "Now you don't even smile." Henry shrugged. "Maybe I just ran out of songs." And then, one rainy morning, something strange happened. It was early, the diner barely open, chairs still being wiped down, coffee still brewing. Outside, the storm was relentless, wind pushing against the door, rain pelting the glass. Henry was setting a plate when he saw headlights flash through the window. A sleek, black car, nothing like the ones that usually park there. Expensive. Clean. It idled for a moment, engine purring quietly in the storm. Henry frowned, wiping his hands on his apron. He hadn't seen a car like that around this part of town in years. The driver's door opened. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out, umbrella in hand. He walked briskly through the rain and pushed open the diner door. The man looked around for a moment, eyes scanning the room until they found Henry. "Are you Mr. Henry?" he asked, his tone polite but firm. Henry nodded slowly, unsure. "Yes, that's me." The man reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small envelope, and placed it on the counter. "She wanted you to have this," he said simply. Henry blinked. "She?" The man smiled faintly. "You'll understand when you read it." Before Henry could ask anything else, the man nodded once, turned, and left, the bell above the door chiming softly as he disappeared into the rain. Henry stared at the envelope in his wrinkled hands, water droplets glistening on its surface. His name was written on it in delicate handwriting. He recognized it instantly. Emma. For the first time in weeks, Henry's heart began to race again. He didn't know it yet, but that letter was about to change everything. The morning rush is quiet. Only the sound of the coffee machine hums in the background. Henry stands behind the counter, polishing a cup, staring, like he has every morning, at the empty booth near the window. Table 3. For weeks, it's been the same. The seat where Emma used to sit feels like a ghost in the room. The regulars have stopped asking. Even the new customers seem to sense the silence in that corner. Henry sighs, looks at the door, and whispers under his breath, "Wherever you are, kiddo, I hope you're all right." He tries to smile, but it doesn't reach his eyes. He picks up a new order slip, calls out the next plate, and tries to bury the ache in routine. A gust of wind sweeps through the diner, sharp, cold, and unfamiliar. A tall man in a black coat steps in, the kind of presence that doesn't belong in small-town diners. He's holding a leather envelope and scanning the room. His shoes are polished, his hair perfect, his voice calm but firm. "Excuse me, is there a man named Henry here?" Henry looks up from behind the counter, startled. "That'd be me. Can I help you?" The stranger gives a small, respectful nod. "She asked me to find you." Henry frowns. "She?" The man steps closer, pulling out a small card and placing it on the counter. The envelope bears elegant handwriting. "For Henry. She wanted you to have this," the man says quietly, his expression unreadable. Henry's heart skips. He doesn't have to ask who she is. His hands tremble slightly as he takes the card. "Is she all right?" he manages to ask. The man pauses. "You'll find out tomorrow morning. The address is on the card. She said to tell you, bring your apron." Before Henry can ask anything else, the man nods politely, turns, and walks out into the rain. Henry sits at his small kitchen table, staring at the invitation under the dim light. It's printed on thick white paper. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m., 45th Street, Silverline Tower. Please bring your apron." Henry runs a finger over the words, confused. His mind races with possibilities. Is she in trouble? Is this some kind of job? A prank? He sets the paper down and exhales. "Apron, huh?" he mutters, half a smile forming. "Guess she remembers the uniform." He looks around his quiet house, the clock ticking, the faint hum of the fridge. On the wall, a framed photo of a young girl with his eyes, his daughter, long gone from his life. For a moment, he feels the same ache, that whole people leave when they disappear without goodbye. He whispers, "Maybe this time, I'll get the ending I never got before." Henry stands in front of his bathroom mirror, tying his old diner apron around his waist. It's clean but worn, the fabric faded from years of use. He chuckles softly. "Well, old man, let's see where this takes you." Outside, the sun is just rising. The streets glisten from last night's rain as Henry makes his way through the quiet town toward the city bus stop. He looks oddly out of place, an aging waiter in a crisp apron, holding a folded note in his pocket. The bus pulls into a busy street. Silverline Tower stands tall, sleek, and made entirely of glass. It reflects the morning sun like a mirror. Henry steps off the bus, eyes wide. "Well, I'll be damned," he murmurs. "Never thought I'd see something like this." He walks toward the revolving doors, hesitating. The receptionist inside spots him, a small-town man with gentle eyes and a diner apron. She smiles politely. "Good morning, sir. You must be Mr. Henry. They're expecting you." He blinks. "They are?" "Yes, sir. Elevator to the 20th floor." Henry stands inside, watching the numbers light up. Each ding echoes in his chest. 10, 11, 12. He tightens his apron, suddenly nervous. "She must have done well for herself," he whispers. "I knew she would." When the elevator stops, the doors open to a stunning view: glass walls, bright sunlight, and a large office space buzzing with energy. Every sound feels distant. The smell of fresh coffee and polished wood fills the air. Then, a familiar voice breaks through. "Henry?" He turns. Standing by the window is Emma, radiant, confident, dressed in a crisp white blazer, her hair neatly tied back. She looks different, stronger, but those eyes, those warm brown eyes, are the same. Henry freezes. His lips part, but no words come out. Emma smiles, eyes glistening. You came. You didn't give me much choice, kiddo, he says softly. You said to bring the apron? She laughs through tears, walking toward him. Yeah. I wanted to see you in it one last time. Henry looks around, still confused, still overwhelmed. What is all this, Emma? You said you were struggling, working 2 jobs. Emma nods, her voice trembling slightly. I was. But something changed. You'll see. She gestures toward a group of people waiting by a counter, covered in white cloth. A bright sign behind them reads, The Diner Project. Henry blinks, speechless. What is this? Emma takes his hand gently. A surprise, she says. Something you helped me create. The truth behind Emma's invitation, and how Henry's kindness changes both their lives forever. Henry stands frozen in the middle of the sleek office, the sound of quiet footsteps and murmured conversations echoing around him. The bright banner behind Emma reads, The Diner Project. She smiles warmly, the same way she did back at the old diner, only now her eyes hold confidence and pride, not exhaustion. Henry takes a slow breath, still trying to grasp what's happening. Emma, he says softly, his voice shaking. What is all this? I don't understand. Emma gestures for him to follow her to the center of the room, where a small stage is set up. Her tone is calm, but there's a spark in her eyes, a mix of gratitude and joy that's impossible to miss. Everyone, this is Henry. People in the room turn toward him and applaud politely. Henry looks down, embarrassed, clutching the edge of his apron. He doesn't know it yet, Emma continues, smiling. But this entire project started because of him. Henry blinks, confused. Me? Emma nods, walking closer. Yes. You. She takes a deep breath, and her voice softens, the same voice he remembers from those quiet mornings in the diner. When I first met you, Henry, I was at the lowest point of my life. I'd lost both my parents, dropped out of college, and was working 2 jobs just to keep my lights on. Every day, I came to your diner because it was the only place that felt safe, the only place that still felt human. Emma looks directly into Henry's eyes, holding back tears. You never asked me for anything. You just listened. You made sure I ate, even when I couldn't afford more than coffee. You left those little notes on napkins. You're doing great, don't give up. Those words, Henry, those words saved me. Henry swallows hard, trying to keep his emotions together. I didn't think it mattered much, he says quietly. Just small things to help you through the day. Emma smiles through tears. They mattered more than you'll ever know. Behind her, a slideshow begins to play, photos of the diner, the booths, even a picture of Henry wiping the counter. Emma continues speaking to the group. I got a scholarship after I finished my night classes. Then a job offer, here, at this company. That's why I disappeared. I wanted to build something that would honor what kindness did for me. She gestures to the sign behind her again, the Diner Project. It's a new initiative. We're opening community diners across the state. Places where people who are struggling can get meals, support, and encouragement, just like I did. The first one opens this week. Henry's eyes widen. That's incredible, Emma. You did all that? She nods, beaming. Not just me. I wanted to come back, but not empty-handed. I wanted to return when I could thank you properly. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a small envelope, golden lettering embossed on the front. Ownership documents. Henry frowns, puzzled. What's this? Emma looks at him, her voice steady now. I bought the diner. Henry freezes. You what? I bought the diner, Henry, she says, smiling. It's yours now. Or rather, it's ours. I renamed it. She steps aside and gestures to a framed photo on the table. It's the old diner, But now, the sign above the window reads in big, bold letters, Henry's Place. Henry stares at the picture, his lips trembling. His eyes begin to glisten as he runs a shaking hand over the photo frame. Emma, he whispers, voice breaking. You didn't have to do that. I did, she replies softly. Because you were the first person who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You showed me that kindness doesn't need grand gestures, just small ones that come from the heart. He shakes his head, overwhelmed. I just did what anyone would have done. Emma smiles. Then the world needs more people like you. 2 lawyers and a couple of her assistants step forward, holding out papers and a small box. We've transferred the diner into a new ownership model, she explains. You'll manage it. We'll fund it. It'll serve anyone who walks in, free meals for those in need, community lunches for the elderly, and job training programs for people starting over. Henry's eyes widen as tears finally escape down his cheeks. You're serious? Completely. Emma opens the small box and takes out a name badge. It reads, Henry Manager, Henry's Place. She pins it on his apron, smiling through tears. No, she says softly. You'll never serve alone again. He tries to speak but can't. His voice cracks when he finally whispers. You did all this because of a cup of coffee and a few napkins? Emma shakes her head gently. No. I did this because of what you made me feel, seen, valued, and capable. She steps forward and hugs him tightly. Henry hesitates, then hugs her back, eyes closed. You're the daughter I never got to keep, he says softly. Emma smiles through her tears. And you're the family I never thought I'd find. The staff applauds softly as Henry and Emma stand together by the window. The morning light bathes them in gold, and for the first time in years, Henry feels full, not just of pride, but of peace. A tagline appears below the name. Where kindness is always on the menu. The scene fades to black as Emma says gently, Ready to open your new diner, Henry? Henry smiles through tears, nodding. Yeah, let's serve some hope. Henry's Place opens its doors, and kindness spreads further than either of them imagined. The sound of sizzling bacon, clinking cups, and quiet laughter fills the air. The camera glides slowly through the newly renovated diner, its sign shining proudly outside. Henry's Place. Inside, the old charm remains, the same counter, the same booths, but everything feels lighter now. The walls are brighter, the coffee smells richer, and the people inside carry a quiet warmth in their eyes. Henry stands behind the counter, his white apron crisp, his name badge gleaming. Manager, Henry. He's older now, maybe a little slower, but his spirit is alive, steadier than ever. A young girl, barely in her 20s, nervously sets down a mug and drops a spoon. Henry chuckles softly and walks over. Easy there, kid. First week jitters? She smiles awkwardly. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Henry. I don't want to mess up. Henry pats her shoulder gently. You'll be fine. Just remember, people don't come here for perfection. They come for peace. She exhales, smiling with relief. Henry gives her a reassuring nod before returning behind the counter. The same sunlight filters through, just like it always did. The booth is occupied now, not by Emma, but by 2 construction workers laughing over pancakes, a mother feeding her toddler, an elderly couple holding hands. The world keeps turning, but the spirit of kindness lingers in that corner like sunlight that never fades. The montage continues, snapshots of compassion, laughter, and community filling the diner day after day. Henry's once small gestures have become a movement, unseen, simple, but deeply human. It's late afternoon. The last customers are leaving. Emma, still dressed in her work blazer, sits with a mug of coffee, smiling at the full tables. You did it, she says softly. You really did. Henry laughs. Nah. We did it. You gave this place new life. I just kept the coffee warm. Emma shakes her head, smiling. You gave people more than coffee, Henry. You gave them a reason to smile. Henry looks around, his eyes soft with pride. Funny thing, he says. I used to think I was just serving food. Turns out I was serving hope. They both laugh quietly, the kind of laughter that only comes from shared healing. The walls are covered with photos now, snapshots of smiling faces, newspaper clippings, and one framed photo right near the entrance. Opening day, Henry's Place. Emma and Henry, 2025. Below it, engraved in bronze. Sometimes kindness is the meal that never ends. Life's funny, isn't it? You pour a cup of coffee for someone, and somehow, it pours right back into your own heart. We rush so much, we forget that a few kind words, a warm smile, or a simple note can change someone's whole day. I used to think kindness was just part of my job, but it turns out, it's the best part of being human. The diner is bustling again. Locals greet each other, the smell of breakfast fills the air. Emma enters, holding a box of files, smiling as she spots Henry at the counter. Morning, boss. Henry laughs. Morning, kiddo. Don't call me that. I work for you now. Not anymore, she teases. We work together. They share a quiet laugh before Emma sits at her usual spot, table 3. Emma's coffee cup sits empty now. The sunlight catches it perfectly, the same glow from all those mornings long ago. Henry walks over to clear the table. As he lifts the cup, he notices something underneath, a folded napkin. He frowns slightly, opens it, and reads. Thank you, Henry. Henry's breath catches. His eyes glisten, and a tender smile spreads across his face. He looks toward the window, the sunlight spilling in like a memory. He whispers softly, You're welcome, Emma. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness doesn't just fill a cup of coffee. It fills a life. The sign outside gleams under the morning sun. Henry's Place, where kindness is always on the menu. Inside, people laugh, talk, and live, carrying forward a legacy born from one old man's gentle heart. The camera lingers on the window, table 3, bathed in golden light. An empty cup. A folded note. A life forever changed. Dedicated to everyone who still believes that kindness can change the world.